This video is sponsored by GXE, who I'll take a brief moment to thank. GXE is a platform for gamers and game creators, where developers can easily upload and showcase their projects, and where gamers can play them. In GXE, you'll be able to find any type of indie games, from small titles by aspiring developers to bigger ones made with more resources and experience, all able to be played instantly, natively in your browser. There are hundreds of different games available for free on GXE, and the list keeps growing every week. For example, I loaded up Table Tanks and found it to be supremely addictive, with its charmingly simple art style belying a devilishly difficult, surprisingly deep little game where you can really customize your approach to eliminating all the tanks from each level. My time was over 13 minutes, probably incredibly easy to beat, so why not do so yourself? With leaderboards, you can easily check out the most popular games and challenges of the week, allowing you to keep up to date with what's trending in the community. And what's more, access to the many games on GXE is completely free, but you can only get all these features by using Opera GX, the world's first browser for gamers, also available for free. So what are you waiting for? Use my link below to access GXE today. Doing so really helps the channel. Thanks to GXE for sponsoring the video, and now on with the show. There's a moment I experienced upon revisiting Red Dead Redemption 2 that should have annoyed me to the point of turning off the game, and yet it only compelled me to play more, to invest myself in its open world in a way I hadn't even done in my first playthrough way back when. Nestled in the early game, although still several hours in for me, I'd forgotten the sheer size of Red Dead 2's story, is one of a couple of tutorials for the game's hunting system, an adventure undertaken alongside aging outlaw Hosea Matthews, and a mission that teaches you not only the mechanics of hunting, but readies you for the slower, more focused mindset, the time investment you're likely to have to put in here. Over the 2 in-game days in which the mission takes place, Hosea guides you through the process of acquiring a horse, getting meat, setting up camp, cooking meals, and preparing bait for larger game. Each stage punctuated by the requisite lengthy horse rides and the game's divisive, but in my eyes still deeply effective, attention to detail in its animations, and willingness to just let moments linger. And this is all in service of pursuing the legendary bear, one of many mighty animals you can choose to go up against, their hides worth considerably more than the various fauna you come across on your travels. In this instance, once the scripted fright of the tutorial is over and Hosea heads back to camp, I decide to stick around and see if I can't nab this dastardly bear right here and now. I slowly prowl the area for a good 10-15 minutes or so, looking for any sign of the predator until I finally get my chance, rather inelegantly taking down my prey and collecting the prize, ready to make the sizable journey back to camp with trophy in tow. And then my horse trips up on a bridge and dies. I pick up the bear pelt in full knowledge that in the absence of a wild horse appearing, I am now having to walk all the way back to camp. I stumble into an inexplicably hostile area and am promptly killed. I try running back in to get the pelt, I get ganked again, and finally the hide is gone. My reward for all that time and effort seemingly up in smoke. Here I hadn't just failed a side mission, cut down and respawning at a checkpoint ready to try again. This felt like an event I had straight up lost. There's a difference there. You know, in the game's eyes, I had completed the tutorial. In any RPG, it would come up saying quest completed, and I'd get showered in experience points and loot. But Red Dead didn't care, it didn't foreground that loss. There wasn't even the kind of ceremony that you get in, say, The Witcher, where you go to a different area too soon and suddenly the previous quests are locked off, and the game lets you know that. Instead, this just kind of hung there. It felt inevitable, an uncomfortable reality of existing in this world that one just has to accept after a while. One of many examples I would come across where the story of the mission would extend way beyond the mere objectives of that quest. And of course there is a way to retrieve lost legendary pelts, but the game merely flashes a small blink and you'll miss it message at the top of the screen. It requires you to go even further out of your way to claim your reward, that at the end of the day hardly seems worth the vast effort you've likely expended to get it. And as I say, it's far from the only example of this kind of thing happening. I'd get ambushed by the O'Driscolls in one of the game's more emergent scenarios, and notice the wagon they were lugging behind them, my video game brain suddenly associating that and the loot it might be carrying with my prize for surviving the encounter. What I couldn't have counted on was a passerby registering the final O'Driscoll being taken out as, well, what it is, murder, and suddenly a mad chase ensues where I take out this one person by shooting out his tires, so to speak, which another civilian rightly saw as an act of animal cruelty, resulting in a whole other chase to try and take them out in a different way, one that doesn't arouse yet more suspicion from the authorities. And of course, silencing all those people and returning to the scene of that original ambush many moons later, I find my wagon, my prize, long gone. It's not that the contents of said wagon would have been game-changingly brilliant or anything, there might not have been any contents to speak of whatsoever, but it still didn't stop that pang setting in, one that had started to become all too familiar across my many hours of playtime that I'd lost out on something. And it's interesting because for all the game has its many issues with its main mission design, the examples I've outlined speak to an overall subversion in terms of how we typically view mission structure, in a way that actually ends up bolstering the game's world and themes, even if it means that I sometimes lose out on cash or a few healing items or whatever. See, typical missions in games, especially in other Rockstar titles, generally instill in players the assurance that if you do the thing, complete the objective, that the reward immediately follows. You know, shoot those dudes over there means immediate cash in the wallet. How Red Dead 2 shifts this then is in the idea that the objective has no intrinsic in-game value. That is to say, great, you skinned a bear. If you actually want anything meaningful for that effort beyond some meat to cook later, you'd better get that item across to a vendor, and there sure as shit aren't any nearby. Merely collecting the reward itself becomes a multi-stage process, with its own potential for truly emergent narrative that simply won't play out the same for every player, where you end up hoping that you won't get jumped or robbed or trip up or fall off an unexpected cliff in the middle of nowhere. Some players toil and get the reward, while some players toil and don't. And while some of this might seem like simply frustrating, inconsistent game logic that leads to those moments where you can ostensibly lose missions, the reason I found it so compelling was that the absurdist chaos it evoked, that feeling that anything could go wrong at any minute, felt consistent with the nature of the world that protagonist Arthur finds himself hurtling through. Unpredictable, unfair, and unknowably complex. It's a world where things just happen. A man comes to you asking for help with a snake bite. You know, not exactly as organic an event as its sudden appearance would have you believe. Likely everyone will encounter this dude at some point, but it's a tale in itself, one that was being woven pre-bite and will continue post-bite, and outside of this, and potentially one more encounter later on that's just as fleeting, none of that detail gets filled in for you. You either do the dude a favour, leave him, kill him, mess around with a lasso, putting Arthur's rugged yet poetic temperament to one side for just a minute in order to indulge in his more mischievous tendencies. Either way, this guy comes into your life and then he leaves. Same as so many other side characters, each with their own narratives and lives, comprising untold chaos and mundanity in equal measure, just as yours does. Even as the protagonist of this video game, you don't inherently matter more than the other people of this world. And it's this philosophy that drives the game's approach to your rewards for side missions, and more so than the dense, layered characterization of your gang or the attention to detail in animations, this is what lends the world its truly human quality, its paralyzing sense of scale that extends way beyond simply how big the map is. It's in the fact that you struggle as everyone else struggles, and that sometimes those struggles are entirely ephemeral. Losing that hard-earned pelt or missing out on that reward ends up as merely one more stitch on the tapestry of one person's life that no one else might ever remember or witness. Fellow YouTuber pal Rasputin recently made a video talking about the game being deliberately frustrating, and in terms of the main narrative, I definitely agree with that point. Sections like Guarma use the limiting of your freedoms as a pacing device, but in these side missions, these random occurrences and threads that you end up pulling on during your time in the open world, those moments where you can lose and all your work amounts to naught, the unpredictability of those scenarios and the world governing that unpredictability ends up completely avoiding tedium, at least for me. Rather, far from frustration, those moments where I lose are actually exciting, compelling, the results of experiences and stories that are mine alone. It's this side mission and encounter design that makes the world feel so much bigger than just you, reflecting the cold, indifferent brutality of the era being depicted. If Arthur can't even be guaranteed the security of something as simple as a reward for his work, something games have trained us to expect over time, it stands to reason that the ever-encroaching changing of the times that gang leader Dutch gradually loses his mind in his desperate flailing fight against is a fight that Arthur might feel increasingly skeptical about buying into after a certain point. Similarly, and especially knowing the tragedy with which such a futile struggle ends up playing out, I guess I found a similar comfort in largely rejecting that fight now I'm revisiting the game. I'm not really bothering with the critical path this time around, instead spending hours and hours just being in the open world, embracing the unknowable chaos of it all, even if it might result in a lot of effort that quickly and unexpectedly goes bad and leaves me with nothing to show for it. In a style similar to the space of Breath of the Wild, not only does such an approach make those small moments where you do succeed, where you manage to, say, get a deer carcass back to camp, something that you might not even really benefit from mechanically if you don't bother eating the resultant stew or whatever, most importantly, it speaks to this idea that the larger reward, it would seem, is just getting one more day of experiences, one more story, no matter how unfortunate said story might be. Its systems impressively bolstering narrative and themes in a way that I didn't necessarily pick up on my first go around. And at the end of it all, sure, sometimes you want a game like Forza, for instance, that purely exists to make you feel good at all times. But equally, as Red Dead 2 has now proven to me, sometimes in order to experience the true elation of winning, there's a lot to be said for a game that has the confidence to really let you lose. Thank you again to GXC for sponsoring the video, check it out via my link in the description, and thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all the YouTube stuff, as well as check out my podcast and Twitch links in the description. But most importantly, I really just need to say a massive thank you to my patrons. I could not have envisioned a more positive response to that last update video. I am extremely humbled and want you to know how genuinely massive an impact you are all having on the sustainability of the channel going forward, both financially and personally. I am so grateful to have you all on board and can't wait to show you some of the ideas I have for videos in the coming months. Seriously, thank you all so much. And if you've enjoyed any of the videos I've put out and want to join the many amazing people on screen helping the channel become more sustainable by supporting my work, you can directly help out, as well as get things like access to completely ad-free video uploads, Q&As, and now exclusive video content by heading to patreon.com/writingongames and pledging only what you feel comfortable with. I am forever thankful for your support in whatever form it takes. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Dan Murray, Gavin Casey, Alistair Dunn, Bitautas Catharsis, Matthew Bowman, Ben Pace, Young Condor, David Karstens, Alex Monasterio, Mike G, Scared Confusion, Tom Webster, Max Cohen, Dana Sukowskis, Christopher Faherty, Nicholas Villeneuve, Nelwyn Palacios, Ruth Knapman, Yogesh Deshpande, Leah Chinello, Captain Knusprik, Bryce Snyder, Lucas, David Björk, Winter, The Nameless Guy, Tommy Carver Chaplin, Dr. Motorcycle, Shardfire, Lynn Browning, Calliope Ranis, Spike Jones, Ossian Olausen, Charlie Kimball, Jordan Midler, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you all so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.